Well, hello again. This is the 21st of July 2023, and this is yet another Aughty Thoughty. And this is about the end of spin. What do you do when your spin stops spinning? Because it does happen, I mean, sometimes very broad subject, say wildlife or history, it can just keep on going and going and going. And maybe have peaks and troughs throughout your life, but something like it's so broad, so open-ended that you can just keep on going and going, finding more and more things to learn about, and keep finding different areas of it that you haven't discovered before, but often very specific special interests. One specific celebrity, one specific book. That there comes a point that you've learned everything there is to learn about it. You've said everything there is to say about it, and they fade away. Sometimes even before you've learned absolutely everything about them, they fade away. And I think spin itself is one of the most magical aspects of autism. It's something that we don't really share with anybody else. I mean, I've said before, the closest thing I can relate it to is being in love. It's like being in love with a specific subject. And like being in love, it can go on and on and on, or it can just fizzle out, or you can become completely disillusioned with it. I'll go through a few of my past spins and discuss how they came to an end, because there are many ways they can end. If we go right back, to my childhood, the pre-internet age, you did very quickly come to the end of what you could find out. I think it's something that I think younger people won't really. Well, I suppose they'll understand it, but they won't really feel it. Coming to the end of the available information. Say you're into a TV series that was on. You'd watch each episode. You'd have your weekly episode. Maybe you might get a repeat if you're lucky. If it was something really big, there might be an article in a magazine about it, or a interview on a chat show with one of the lead actors or something. And that'd be it. There wouldn't be anything else. If you didn't, have someone in your life who was also very interested in it and who wanted to sit and talk to you about it, that there was nothing else to do. It would just sort of play over and over in your head. And, you could create something. You could draw a picture of one of the scenes that you're particularly entranced with, or, write yourself a bit of fanfic or something. But there's no way of sharing it. I mean, maybe it come out on video so you could watch it over and over, but there was a limit to how much was available. Like I was into Farthing Wood for maybe 2 or 3 years, and I watched the cartoon series, and I used to get the magazines and collect all the free gifts and things, but there wasn't any way of going beyond what was immediately available. There was no fan base to connect with. Other than writing into the magazine and maybe getting your letter published, there was nothing. There was no fan website set up that you could go and discuss things with other fans. You read other people's opinions of it. It just wasn't there. And once the magazine series came to an end, that was it. I suppose my interest fizzled out because there wasn't anything more to be interested in. And I was very sad about it. It had been such a big part of my life for so long, and I mean, I think it's probably started off my habit for having imaginary friends as well. I had a lot of imaginary friends, but sort of quite late in my childhood. I mean, a lot of small children have them, but I started when I was maybe about 6 or 7. And it was because I was imagining myself in the world of Farthing Wood and sort of interacting with the characters and things. And, that sort of developed into a whole imaginary world, with characters from other things I was enjoying in. And some characters are made up. And then, so as I got older, that developed. I didn't sort of engage in it personally, but it's sort of, I think that probably developed into writing fiction. And then when I discovered there was such a thing as fan fiction, I suppose that's, I maybe I realised that, that's what I'd been doing in my childhood, writing fan fiction in my head all the time. And then I got quite into that world. So, I mean, they can sort of lead one thing into another. I mean, my recent one that I've talked about in previous videos for Father Ted, that's sort of split off into 2 ways. I mean, I'm still into Father Ted, but I've kind of got to the point that I've watched the episodes so many times, I don't really want to keep watching them. That there's, again, it's a very limited source material, but I mean, since there's been a lot put on the internet about it, there is a fan base on the internet. There are people making memes and reaction gifs and things out of them, and there is a little bit of an active fan fiction scene as well. I mean, there's only 10 people in the world who are all sort of writing things for each other and liking each other's stories and things. But yeah, it's there. It's alive. There are people there to talk to who feel the same way I do. And as well as being sort of reassuring, it's sustaining. As I say, back in the day, before there was the internet, before you could just go online and find these communities of people who are, interested in a specific subject, you were on your own. Unless you just got lucky and bumped into someone who sort of quite happily sit and talk to you about, your favourite book, your favourite TV series, or your favourite character all day long. You're a bit stuck. You'd just be playing it over and over in your head, and it could drive you mad, But yeah, having someone to actually share it with, who'll sort of sit and you can carry on sparking each other off, and remind each other of things, and that there's a lot to be said for it. I think the internet is an absolute godsend for autistics in particular, because it was a lonely experience having a spin. in my childhood. I mean, going back to my example of Farthing Wood, there were a few kids in my class who enjoyed it, but nobody who enjoyed it as much as I did. And we'd start having a conversation about what happened on Farthing Wood last night, and nobody really wanted to go into the same amount of detail I did. The discussion about what was on telly last night is, oh, did you see so and so? Yes, it was good. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. And that was it. It was a couple of sentences at most, and nobody wanted to sit and spend a whole playtime debating, which characters are doing what and so on. But yeah, and they did just fizzle out because you just feel like there was something a bit wrong with you. Wanted to sort of go on and on about these. People made you feel that there was something a bit wrong with you. And yeah, as I was saying, going back to the second point I was making, I'm not doing very well today. I'm getting in a bit of a tangle. Yes, so I am still kind of interested in Father Ted in that respect. I'm still interested in sort of sharing thoughts with other fans, which I can do now thanks to the magic of the online community. But it's also sort of split off into two different directions, I'll say. One is sort of the life and work of Ardal O'Hanlon, which again is sort of very specific. And I mean that one has been going on for a couple of weeks and it's fizzling out. That there's only so much you can learn about the works of one particular comedian. I mean, he's still alive, still doing odd bits and bobs here and there, doing interviews now and then and things. But he hasn't really done any major work for several years. He's got a very bad back apparently. He slipped 2 discs and can't stand up for very long, presumably. This is it. You see that there's a limit to how much information there is. Especially when it's an individual famous person, there's, especially someone who's still alive as well, there's a limit to how much I really feel okay about researching. It comes a point, what's a healthy interest, what's being a fan of somebody, and what's going a bit beyond what's acceptable. You sort of have to catch yourself and think, right, if I was in this position, would I be okay with someone else knowing all this about me just because they happen to like my work? I think there's, when it's an individual person as well, you have to not delve too deeply into kind of their personal life, personal details, where they live and things. It's not not ethical, really. I think. I mean, I like to distance myself from famous people I admire. I remember when Twitter started up, lots of people were sort of communicating with celebrities, and it was really exciting. Oh, so and so tweeted, so and so retweeted me. Oh, so and so responded to my tweet, and I used to think, well, why are you so bothered about talking to these people? Because I think ultimately they're people who do a job that puts them in the public eye, and beyond their kind of professional career, I'm not really interested. I mean, yeah, if there's, something on the Wikipedia page about, oh, so and so got married and had 3 children, and oh, okay, yeah, I'll read that. I'll think, oh yes, that's some sort of relevant information. But I would never be one of these people who'd start writing fan mail or hanging around outside people's houses. I, I, I think I'd prefer to keep them on my television. So yeah, it went off in the direction of, oh, sorry, cats fighting. It went off in the direction of sort of the extended work of Ardal O'Hanlon, which lasted a few weeks, and has sort of come to a natural fizzle out. I think I've sort of seen a bit of everything he's done. Everything that's available anyway, everything that's available on YouTube, and yeah, that's that. And the other one is actually a recurring spin they've had several times over the last 20 years, well, more than 20 years now, which is sort of Irish history and culture. And it's one of those that'll lie dormant for a few years and then come back, and lie dormant and come back, and that's unusual. That's unusual. I mean, it started when I was I'll be 14, and I had a bit of a crush on one of my online friends, and I actually don't know much about him, and I never knew much about him, other than that he lived in Ireland, and he was about the same age as me. And we met on a forum. We sort of exchanged messages about TV shows we liked and things, and eventually just sort of drifted away. I don't know what he's doing now. Don't even know his real name, but I was very, very much in love with him for about 3 months, and anything that was sort of connected with Ireland sort of reminded me of him, and yeah, I mean, the crush faded away. I got over it, but the sort of interesting Irish things generally also faded away not long after the crush, but it doesn't take much for it to recur. So I suppose that one never really went away. It just went off the back burner. Went off the back, but went on a back burner for a while. Went off the boil. And every so often, something will restart it. Every few years, I have another little surge of interest in, the history of Ireland, and then it'll drift away again. It's interesting that it never really lasts long enough to have a really in-depth study of it. It lasts maybe a month or so, a few weeks, and it's a bits dotting about. Let's learn about the potato famine, and let's learn about the Irish Civil War, and then it'll just dot about here and there, and then eventually just sort of burn out and fade away again. Just waiting for the next reason to start up again. I mean, spins as well. Spins can end with a bang. I had a big one on Buster Keaton when I was in my early 20s. It went on for quite a while. And it ended because I was reading his autobiography, and yeah, I just became incredibly disappointed in him. You know, he was a violent alcoholic. He wasn't particularly kind to his wives and children. You know, he just came across it. Well, not so much came across as, but you know, it was apparent that he was, you know, just a really horrible person, and I went right off him. You know, I just was no longer interested. I can't remember if I cried literally, but yeah, I was very, very upset. Learning that my hero was not particularly heroic, and I think the same thing happened a few years later with Tony Hancock. I was very into Hancock's Half Hour for a long time, and that sort of developed into the life and work of Tony Hancock. And then as soon as I started learning about, you know, his private life and how he sort of treated people around him and things, yeah, I became extremely extremely angry with him. Yeah. And yeah, and that ended with a bang. But I think because of the earlier experience with Buster Keaton, you know, I had sort of been through it before. I'd sort of understood that, you know, people were, you know, not necessarily all lovely just because I happened to like their comedy, their comedy persona. And I think it didn't quite hit as hard. And I think it's an important process to go through, you know, in learning to separate the art from the artist. And you know, I mean, to come to the decision, you know, is this person who I've, you know, been idolising for quite some time because I like their art, you know, can I still sort of enjoy what they've produced, even though they themselves have disappointed me. And finding that, you know, there's there's only so many excuses you can make for people, and sometimes you know, the knowledge of what they've done in their private lives does kind of taint their work for you to a certain extent. And as I say, it's a decision you've got to make. You know, do you enjoy that show, that book, that whatever they produced so much that you will overlook other things the writer's done? I mean, it's something I've had to do again recently with Father Ted. You know, with you know, Graham Linehan becoming art transphobe. But that it's not quite as intense really, because there's a lot of people involved in the show. There's, you know, the whole production team. There's actors and things who are, you know, not. Well, I don't know if they're not transphobes, but at least not express any opinion on the subject. I had to go through this process of you know, debating how much How much can I forgive as well? And I mean, even before I was sort of spinning majorly on Father Ted, I'd say I was a fan of Graham Linehan. I think he produced three of, to my mind, the best sitcoms of the past 30 years. He sort of used to write a lot of things online that kind of went viral and seemed perfectly sensible. He appeared on a lot of the panel games and things, being very clever and witty and things. And I was, if I met him, I'd have gone up and shook his hand and said, thank you for many hours of quality entertainment. But I like to think I would. I'd probably have just gone and handed him the nearest dandelion or something. I don't know. But he's packed it all in to be a transphobe, and that's a big disappointment. And J.K. Rowling as well. I used to be very, very into Harry Potter. That was a big part of my life for a long time. And she's packed it in to be a transphobe as well, hasn't she? It's do I like the work so much that I'll overlook other things that the producer has done? It's strange because when it's things about their personal political views, you sort of watch the show, read the book again, and sort of see things that suddenly become a little bit dodgy. Now that like the whole scene with the spider baby in Father Ted, you think, oh, is that a sort of metaphor for? And then, but then, are you overthinking it? That's the thing. Are you just overthinking? Because I mean, they're views on a one individual specific little subject, and doesn't necessarily affect other things they've made previously. It's a discussion that you have to take on a case by case basis and decide for yourself. Are you still going to enjoy this work at the same level? Sorry, kitten causing trouble over here. Mrs. Rowley. Are you still going to enjoy their work at face value, knowing what you know, or has it just been ruined for you? And certainly it can kill a spin. It can kill a spin. If you've sort of idolised a person, or you think their work is absolutely flawless, and then you find out that they've done something terrible. It's. I do still like Buster Keaton films at face value. I still like Hancock's Half Hour. I still like Harry Potter, but it's but it's not what it was. It's not what it was. And what I found interesting as well, with having children, going back to things that I enjoyed in my childhood, and revisiting them with someone else. I find out as well how much I forgot. Because when when you're in the midst of your spin and it's your life, you know, you find out everything about it. It's really important to you that you that you know all the facts and figures, and you know you keep repeating things over and over in your head. It's as if you're revising for a test or something, except no test ever comes. But then once it stops, once it's not the most important thing in your life, you know, it does fade away, and it's amazing how much you forget. There was a David Attenborough series on when it was in 1993. It was called Life in the Freezer. It was about Antarctica, and it was just 6 half-hour episodes, and it really surprised me there was only 6 half-hour episodes, because I got the DVD set to show my son. And yeah, I was surprised how little material there was, because I watched that series. I watched the repeats of that series, and I mean, to me, it was absolutely enthralling. I was absorbed by it. I lived and breathed that series for months, maybe a year or two. I used to dream about it, you know, literally dream about it. And I couldn't believe how little material I was working with. I wonder if that series itself was, you know, if that's the reason why I love snow and the winter time, you know, to this day. But yeah, anyway, I sat watching it with my son, and you know, it just kept sparking off little, you know, core memories. That's what they call them now, isn't it? Core memory unlocked. Things that I hadn't thought about for, you know, 30 years. Like krill. Weddell seals. South Georgia. All these things that just hadn't entered my head for so long. They're kind of still in there, but if you'd have asked me, I couldn't have told you. Just sort of unearthing all these things that were buried. But then again, what I was remembering of the series was sort of a set of images that were burned into my mind, and then there were sort of long sequences that I had no memory of at all. You know, half an episode was news to me. I saw as well recently some Americans reacting to Farthing Wood, and again they're, you know, really shocking moments in it that I had no memory of whatsoever. You know, like there's an episode where they cross the motorway, and I remember the episode of them crossing the motorway, but there's a sequence in it where one of the hedgehogs realizes he's going to be run over, and he freezes in panic, and you know, the other hedgehog runs to try and help him, but you know, they both get run over, and that scene had just gone. I did not remember that at all. If you'd asked me, you know, what happens to the hedgehogs in Farthing Wood, no idea. Can't remember. Can't remember anything that hedgehogs ever did. it's strange how quickly things disappear. And there is something quite poignant as well about going back and rediscovering these things. It's a period of your life, you know, that each spin defines an era of your life as much as, you know, which house you lived in, where you worked, who your friends were, and things. Now, I'm not a skirt wearer. Okay, I wear jeans most of the time. I'm not a skirt wearer. I do have a skirt that comes out on special occasions if I'm, you know, sort of trying to show off that I'm making a bit of an effort, you know. And I was trying to think, how old is this skirt? And then I remembered that I wore it when I went to a Beatles convention in 2003. I was mad about the Beatles at the time. And so well, it must be over 20 years old. I must have had this skirt over 20 years. Because I knew that, you know, I was big on the Beatles in 2003. I can sort of, you know, track my life by, you know, which spin I had when, what caused each spin, and so on. Yeah, sometimes a particular person will put you onto something, and you'll probably never know what they started. There's another online friend who put me onto Discworld when I was 17. And again, we sort of talked for a couple of months, and then he developed other interests and faded away. But yeah, I went to Discworld for a couple of years. I then joined a Discworld forum and met a load of people who were into Discworld. One of whom I'm sort of still in contact with now. Yeah, it's I mean, it's not just being interested in something. It's not just having a hobby or a favourite TV series or something. It's a defining part of who you are for a period of your life. I think that's something that, you know, you really need to understand about a spin. It's a very big deal. And, well, like all things, they do end eventually. And then it's, you know, it's part of your identity for that period of your life as dissipated. You know, it needs, you need some sort of replacement. I mean, there have been periods when I've been between spins, and I just feel at a loose end. I don't know what to do with my brain, you know. It's surprising how quickly they do just peter out sometimes. For most of 2020, I lived and breathed Camberwick Green, and you know, my kids put it on now. I put it on just to, you know, entertain the kids sometimes, and I can't be bothered to sit and watch it with them anymore. So the thing is, I have seen every episode. I've gone over and over them in my head. I have, you know, I wrote fanfic about it. I sort of talked to people online about it, and yeah, I read all the websites and it's just got to the point. There's nothing else to say about it, and it's happened. You know, that's That's a thing that happened to me once, and yeah, it's it was good while it lasted, but it's over now. You can still like things for a sort of nostalgia value as well, I suppose. Now, it has a certain place in my heart, I suppose you could say, but it not quite the place it was 3 years ago. I'll leave it there. Talk to me about the nature of spin. What are your spins? How have they ended? How do you feel when they end? I'll see you in the next one.